Good afternoon. My name is A.Garces, ID A083336, Cohort 11. I'm presently a student in the Fire and Emergency Service Management program at St. Thomas University. This video presentation is for the final assignment for the Managing Emergency Medical Services FSM 407-311 class that I am presently in. The question presented is, you have been recently appointed as the EMS Division Chief of a local fire and rescue department. You have been informed by the Fire Chief of the following issue. The current medical director will retire in 30 days. The Fire Chief has asked you to forward him your recommendations and all necessary steps you will undertake to address this issue. Your responses from the perspective of a working emergency manager, EMS Chief, please detail the steps you will take. Well, the steps I will take are first. In receiving notice from the Fire Chief that the current medical director will be retiring in 30 days, the first step I will do is retain the existing agreement between the city and the current medical director. I will review all applicable provisions in the document that could assist me with this point in question. Per the existing agreement between the city and the medical director, if and when the existing medical director's agreement limit has either expired or the medical director has resigned, he is to provide written notification within 90 days prior to the separation from this agreement. Per the agreement, if the city has not been able to hire a replacement for the vacant position of medical director, then the existing medical director would have to continue in his role on a month-to-month basis until his position would be filled. From that provision, I would contact the existing medical director, fire chief, city manager, city clerk, and city attorney and advise them that an extension would be needed until the city could conduct a search to attain a new candidate for medical director. Once this temporary agreement was completed, I would next meet with the human resource director to discuss putting out a request for proposal, which is aka RFP. During our meeting, we would agree to job description, roles and responsibilities, salary, qualification requirements, and legal ramifications. Prior to the request for proposal being released, I would utilize my contacts to seek advice and guidance on any potential candidates that they may feel would make a good medical director. As an EMS chief, my experience alone would have exposed me through the years to a number of positions to pick from as well. Once I narrowed down my selection to the candidates that I feel would be a good fit for our city, I would meet with them on an unofficial manner to further narrow down the best potential candidates. For the physicians that I feel would be a good fit, I would advise them to be on the lookout for a request for proposal that would be released soon. Once these factors were established, I would advise the human resource director to release the RFP to local media outlets like the Miami Herald, Coral Gables Gazette, the Coral Gables official website, as well as medical outlets like GEMS magazine. The RFP would contain the above mentioned items along with directions on how to retrieve an online application through the city website, as well as directions on how to submit the application, and as well as timelines for submittal. The timeline for submittal would be set at 60 days by my office. Once the RFP is released, the human resource director would submit a copy of the document to the city clerk for stamping and filing. Once the RFP has been released, I would be unable to discuss any particulars relating to the position until the decision to place a conditional offer of services has been made. Within the 60-day application process, I would establish a committee consisting of the fire chief, deputy fire chief, operations chief, and existing medical director, human resource director, and myself for the purpose of developing an interview assessment form. We would establish a set of interview questions that were pertinent to the needs of that position for our city, as well as refer to the FEMA handbook for EMS medical directors. Once the interview assessment document was completed, I would submit it to the city attorney for final review. Once we received the blessing from the city attorney on the interview document, I would meet with the existing medical director on a succession and mentoring plan for the new incoming medical director. In this plan, we would establish an orientation and training plan for the incoming medical director. This plan would also involve the requirement of the new incoming medical director to meet with the existing medical director for the purpose of training. Per the provisions of the agreement, the existing medical director would have to dedicate a total of 40 hours of training to the new medical director to be completed within 3 months of the hiring of the new medical director as a succession plan. Once the 60 days are completed, I will sit down with our committee to create an eligibility list. From this eligibility list, the committee would narrow down the top 5 candidates. These top 5 candidates would be contacted to schedule an oral panel interview to be conducted by the committee interview panel. All top 5 candidates would be interviewed and finally narrowed down to the top 2 candidates. These 2 candidates would then be brought in for a second interview in which an established set of provisions would be presented to them. These provisions would be as follows. The City Commission would be offering and awarding a 3-year contract with an option to renew at the city's discretion for an additional 2-year period. The terms of the agreement shall commence upon execution of the agreement and shall continue for a period of 3 years or until terminated by the city upon 30 days written notice. The candidate would be advised that he will be receiving a background investigation, a polygraph exam, and a medical drug screening, which would require that the candidate successfully pass and be certified as a drug-free, as well as abide by the city's drug-free workplace prior to employment or consideration. The city will also require the candidate to submit to annual medical exams as well as random unannounced drug tests. The candidate would also be required to submit a valid Florida driver's license. He would also be required to sign and agree to a confidential information agreement in which he would agree that any information received by the city and any services provided by a physician during his tenure as the medical director for the city shall not be revealed to any other person's firm or organization. The candidate would have to agree to make all documents available within 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in order to satisfy the city's emergency demands for continued non-interrupted service. The candidate would also be provided with a list of professional services that will be required for the position and that will be reviewed during the meeting. The next step would be to review and verify that the minimum qualifications for the medical director position were met by discussing each item with the candidate. The qualifications are, at minimum, Florida licensed medical director, board certified or board qualified in emergency medicine preferred, or board certified or qualified in internal medicine or family practice with a minimum of 2 years experience as a physician in an ER. Advanced cardiac life support and advanced trauma life support certified, with at least one of them being an instructor status. Previous experience as an EMS education for providers. A minimum of 5 years experience as a fire service EMS medical director or associate medical director in the state of Florida. A DEA license for Schedule 2, 4, 5 controlled substances. An ability to facilitate and serve as a liaison with neighboring fire departments and medical directors. Clinically active in emergency medicine. Familiar with the scope of EMS skills. Knowledge and involvement with quality improvement activities in all aspects of EMS delivery. The candidate would then be provided with a compensation package offered, which would consist of, for the first year, $139,065. The second year would consist of $143,237, and the third year would consist of $147,535,000. Also discussed would be the status of the medical director as an independent contractor, which acknowledges that entering into an agreement as an independent contractor, they are responsible for payment of any federal income taxes, FICA, and unemployment taxes. Furthermore, the candidate would be advised and would have to agree to an agency third-party beneficiary agreement in which the medical director would have no authority to bind the city to any promise, debt, default, or undertaking of the physician. Also, a hold harmless and an indemnification agreement would have to be signed as well. The candidate would have to provide his own professional liability insurance of no less than $1 million per occurrence, a comprehensive general liability insurance as well, with limits no less than $1 million per occurrence for bodily injury and property damage, and $2 million in the aggregate. Also, he would have to supply workman's compensation insurance with limits no less than $1 million combined single limit per occurrence for bodily harm and property damage. These insurances are to be paid and maintained at the expense of the medical director. Once in the position as the medical director, he will be up to date and abide by all federal, state, and local laws, for instance, the Equal Employment Opportunity and American Disability Acts as a couple of examples. Although a contract employee, the medical director will be subject to the city's rules and regulations regarding conduct. The final provision to be discussed would be the termination provision, which indicates that the medical director can be terminated by default for the following: breach of any material in this agreement, fails to perform any agreed upon task or service, physician has failed to retain the insurance requirements, termination for convenience which serves the best interest of the city, and termination with or without cause. Upon the completion of the second interview, the committee reviews all documents and will make the final determination on which candidate they recommend to provide an offer of employment. Once a candidate is determined, the fire chief will provide his signature of approval and submit it to the city manager for review. Once the city manager signs off, it is given to the city attorney for the purpose of drawing up the agreement. This agreement is signed by the candidate, city manager, human resource director, and fire chief. Once all signatures have been acquired, the agreement is submitted to the city commission for final approval during a commission meeting. The city commission will review the approval from the city manager, and the commission will vote on the recommendation for employment. This vote is a formality once it has been approved through the city manager's office. The candidate will then be advised to attend a special city commission in which he will be officially offered the position and officially introduced as the new medical director. The final documents will be submitted to the city clerk for stamping and filing of all documents. On the first day, as the medical director for the city of Coral Gables, he will be given an orientation of the department, equipment, personnel, policies and procedures. It is during this time where he will be mentored by the exiting medical director, as well as from the EMS chief and his staff. The medical director will be given a checklist to review and ensure that all has been met. This concludes my presentation on the final assignment for management of the emergency services. Thank you. My name is A.Garces, and thank you.